you a moment ago, it was reported that the U.S. intelligence community had warnings, ominous warnings, as early as January that the coronavirus would become likely a pandemic. Their concerns reportedly went ignored. Joining me now is Michael Lewis, who's a fantastic author. If you haven't read all of his books, you're really missing out. He's written a ton of bestsellers, including The Fifth Risk, which is about President Trump and the administration, which he says is ill-equipped to handle the most critical missions of government. Michael Lewis joins us now. Michael, I'm wondering what you make of the administration's response that you've seen thus far and how it relates to what you wrote about in this book and predicted.
It's sad to watch. Not hard to have predicted. If you just go back to the way they behaved when they took office, you could see something was going to happen, right? I mean, he had by law to prepare a transition team of hundreds and hundreds of people who were supposed to go in and kind of learn how this government that he was supposed to run worked the day after the election, and he fired the entire operation and then made a great show of like tossing the briefing books that they might have used to brief him in the garbage can. So you had this situation where, I mean, the reason I wrote The Fifth Risk is if you think of the federal government, one way to look at it is as a manager of this portfolio of really, serious risks, and there are lots of them. And if you're not going to manage them, if you're not going to learn about the thing you're managing, you're heightening all of the risks. And what the question I had is, what is the thing that's going to happen that is going to bite us? It was this question, is it going to be a cyber attack? Is it going to be the electric grid? Is it going to be nuclear weapons? Who knew what it was going to be? But
what's the fifth risk?
Well, the fifth risk in the book is the risk you're not thinking about. It's the ones you attend to. The ones that are vivid or recent are the ones that you tend to be prepared for. And the point is,
and
the
so
government
you got that term from a former, I think it was a Department of Energy official, right?
So that's right. I wandered into the Department of Energy because that was just where I happened to start. And I asked him to name what the top 5 risks he worried about were. And, it was a nuclear weapon going off when it shouldn't. And it was the Iran nuclear deal falling apart and the electric grid being compromised. And he got to 5 and he couldn't think of one. And it took a while. He finally came up with one. But basically, while he was grappling for it, I thought that's the fifth risk. The fifth risk is the thing you can't think about. Because the thing you're not thinking about is the thing that's going to cause you trouble. But that's what the government does, is it manages those sorts of risks. And so you ask me like, what do I think about how Trump has handled this? And it's appalling to watch, but it's very in character. I mean, that's what's been so striking about it. It's not surprising that a president who really didn't want to know about the government that he's running has led us to having this disease, this virus out there that we don't know anything about. I mean, that's the signature of this moment is that we don't have the testing ability to figure out where it is, who's got it, who's giving it to whom. And that, that's a very Trumpian thing.
Well, it's not even not interest in the government. It's a complete suspicion of the government that does exist. I mean, even today, in the midst of all of this, he wasted, a second of his life in order to say the deep State Department, with the Secretary of State standing right next to him, who of course just, remains there, not defending the department at all. But I mean, the idea that even in the midst of this, he is trying to, cut the knees off all these, it's now a dirty word to have, lifelong civil servants, people who actually know what they're doing. That's now viewed as, deep state or, bureaucrats.
Know what they're doing is probably the important phrase in what you just said, because I think the source of hostility is that, this is a guy who has insisted from the beginning he kind of knows everything he needs to know before he knows it. And you've got this body of people, and the government is, among other things, this great scientific enterprise, who actually do know things. And they're in a position to challenge him. And I think he finds that threatening. His pose in the beginning was indifference, and a lot of things came in as a result of that indifference. And just look at the various ways he's handling it, and it's so in character. Like the focus on foreigners. Chinese virus. We're gonna first thing he said almost was we're gonna close the Mexican border, right? And actually, what threatens us is not foreigners coming in, or it's not even really travel. It's mixing within our communities, and it's that's he's unable to kind of get that across because it's outside of his frame of reference. Everything it's the other. The other is responsible for the problem. But this hostility to knowledge, it was just at the bottom of his administration, is really haunting us, and lots of people are going to die
also,
who don't.
yeah. It's also one thing if you're a person just on a bar stool talking about, the Chinese virus. It's another thing when you're responsible for all the citizens in this country, many of whom are of Asian descent, and who are now at risk of having, racist, bigoted idiots on the street accost them with slurs, as has happened to a CNN reporter today, or yesterday, I think it was, and which has happened to people who have videotaped. We've seen Asian Americans being attacked on the streets or being screamed at on trains or on buses. I mean, it's ridiculous that the president of the United States is the one, using that lever.
Flames.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Now you gotta ask yourself who does that. I mean, who behaves like that? And in part, it's someone who doesn't accept any of the consequences of his actions. And I think that's also a piece of in the fabric of the Trump administration. This is one of the threads. It's like that he's never really accepted the responsibility of the job he was given. And I don't want to lay it all at his doorstep because it is, one of the things that come in the book, that was striking to me was he was more an ultimate expression of stuff that's going on in this country for a long time. This hostility, especially from the Republican Party, towards the federal government and the bleeding of the federal government. I mean,
hey, Michael, I'm sorry, I got to interrupt you. I got to take a quick break, but stick around. We're going to come back in just a couple minutes. I want to keep talking to you. We'll be right back.
All right.